Right now, far below the last trace of sunlight, something is drifting through black water with a mouth too large for its body, teeth that can vanish in the dark, and a stomach built for a meal it may not find for months. Another creature nearby carries its own lantern. Another survives by pretending to be invisible. And somewhere deeper still, an animal so massive it could rival a bus in legend has spent most of human history existing as rumor, scars, and pieces pulled from the stomachs of whales. The terrifying part is not that these creatures exist, it's that the same ocean keeps inventing them again and again. Why does the deep keep arriving at monsters? This is not really a story about an anglerfish, or a giant squid, or a dragonfish. It's a story about a pattern. Go deep enough and evolution starts producing the same kind of answer in different forms. Giant mouths, oversized teeth, glowing lures, red bodies, transparent parts, expandable stomachs, giant eyes, or sometimes almost no useful eyes at all. It's as if the deep ocean keeps running the same brutal experiment and getting back different versions of the same nightmare. And that shouldn't make sense. The deep sea is not one single place. It spans huge distances, different temperatures, different species, different food webs. Yet over and over, life down there starts to look less like ordinary biology and more like a collection of survival hacks stolen from horror films. So what is the ocean selecting for that is so extreme, so unforgiving, that normal-looking animals keep getting edited into these impossible forms. Most people assume the answer is pressure, crushing pressure. And yes, the pressure is monstrous. In the ocean, it increases by roughly 1 atmosphere every 10 meters, eventually reaching forces that would wreck any unprotected human machine. Add freezing water and endless darkness, and it feels obvious. Of course, everything down there looks cursed. But that's not the real answer. Pressure explains why deep-sea bodies can't be built like shallow water bodies. It does not explain why so many deep-sea animals look like traps. The true monster maker is not just pressure, it's a far nastier combination. Darkness, starvation, and distance. Below about 200 meters, sunlight disappears. Photosynthesis stops. Food becomes a falling accident. According to the Smithsonian, less than 5% of food produced at the surface reaches the abyssal plain. In other words, the deep is not simply dangerous, it is economically broken. Life is trying to survive in a world with almost no income. That changes everything. In a forest, a predator can miss one meal and hunt again tomorrow. In the deep ocean, tomorrow may not help. The next prey item may be hours away, days away, or drift past only once. So evolution begins asking a different question. Not, how do you become elegant? Not, how do you become fast? But, how do you survive when failure keeps happening? And that is where the monsters begin. Start with the mouth. The gulper eel looks less like a fish than a bad idea that kept getting funded. Its jaw can balloon outward into a giant net. Its stomach can expand to handle oversized meals. And it uses this ridiculous setup because in the deep sea, you don't reject food just because it's inconvenient. If something edible appears, you take it. Gracefully if possible, absurdly if necessary. Even its design tells the story. Tiny teeth, massive scoop, poor swimming ability. This is not an athlete. It's an ambush bag with a spine. That's the first deep-sea paradox. The animals that look most aggressive are often not built for pursuit at all. They're built for rare opportunity. A gulper eel does not have a giant mouth because it is powerful. It has a giant mouth because it is desperate. The deep keeps creating oversized jaws for the same reason a starving person stops being picky. When food is scarce enough, good enough becomes genius. Then the ocean makes the trick even stranger. In the deep, many creatures don't just hunt. Bioluminescence is extremely common there. The Smithsonian says it may even be the most common form of communication on the planet. Think about that. On Earth, in the largest habitat we have, life may primarily speak in flashes. Predators lure prey with light. Prey blind predators with light. Mates find each other with light. Some animals even use light to erase themselves by matching the faint glow from above. In a place defined by darkness, evolution's favorite tool is not armor, it's theater. And then comes one of the deepest jokes nature has ever told. The dragonfish is a predator with a dark body and transparent teeth. Transparent teeth. That sounds like the kind of detail a screenwriter would invent and a biologist would cut for being too dramatic. But researchers at Scripps found that the dragonfish's teeth avoid scattering light because of their unusual nanostructure. And the dentin lacks the tubules that give our own teeth their color. Human teeth announce themselves every time we smile. Dragonfish teeth disappear. It is a hunter that solved the problem of ambush by making its own weapons nearly invisible. Compare that to us for a second. Humans invented stealth coatings, anti-glare surfaces, camouflage fabrics. The dragonfish got there first by turning its mouth into a ghost. And it did it for one reason. If even a tiny glint gives you away in a world of bioluminescent signals, you lose dinner. The deep doesn't reward beauty, it rewards the elimination of evidence. If food is rare, your body starts favoring extremes. Bigger mouths, expandable stomachs, slower metabolism, opportunism over specialization. If light is rare, your body either creates light, hides from light, or becomes red because red wavelengths vanish at depth and effectively turn you dark. If predators can appear from anywhere, your shape becomes deception. And if encounters are rare, every chance meeting becomes an evolutionary emergency. NOAA, Ocean Explorer, Smithsonian Ocean. This is why the deep ocean feels like a monster factory. It is not selecting for evil. It is selecting for solutions to impossible math. You need to find food that barely exists. Avoid becoming food in near total darkness. Spend as little energy as possible, and somehow still reproduce in the largest habitat on the planet, where another member of your species might be farther away than an entire city. Under those rules, ordinary animals are not enough. Ordinary animals get outcompeted by animals willing to become bizarre. Take the giant isopod. On land, its cousin is the humble woodlouse, the little armored pillbug under a rock. In the deep sea, that same basic body plan gets scaled into something over 30 centimeters long, with a shell like a tank and the patience of a machine in sleep mode. One captive giant isopod reportedly survived for 5 years without eating. 5 years. A human can't ignore lunch. This animal can ignore half a decade. That doesn't make it a deep-sea tyrant. It makes it a perfect product of scarcity. The Natural History Museum notes that food is so limited on the seafloor that giant isopods spend much of their lives waiting for something to fall. Their metabolism is incredibly slow. Their size may be linked to deep-sea gigantism, with theories including greater oxygen needs and fewer predators at depth. So even gigantism, one of the most dramatic monster traits, may partly come from a world where being larger is safer, and waiting is the main skill. The deep created a sea cockroach, yes, but mostly it created a master of low expectations. The giant squid became famous because it seemed too large, too hidden, too mythic to be real. Smithsonian notes that the longest verified total length on record is 43 feet, including tentacles, and estimates based on beak size suggest they could potentially reach around 66 feet, though specimens of that size have not been confirmed. For most of history, what we knew came from damaged carcasses, fishermen's stories, and remains pulled from beaches. A giant animal in our own ocean spent centuries feeling more legendary than factual. And here's where things become strange again. In 2025, 100 years after the colossal squid was first identified, scientists captured the first confirmed footage of one alive in its natural habitat. Not an adult giant, but a 30-centimeter juvenile at 600 meters deep. Adults are estimated to grow up to 7 meters long and weigh as much as 500 kilograms, making the colossal squid the heaviest invertebrate on Earth. We knew the species existed for a century, and still had not actually watched one living down there until now. That is not just mystery. That is a reminder that the deep still withholds the punchline. But the deepest reveal is not about hunting. It's about love. Or more accurately, whatever the deep ocean had to turn love into. Deep-sea anglerfish are famous for the glowing lure on the female's head. But that lure is only half the story. In some species, the male is tiny, finds a female by smell, bites into her body, and never leaves. Their tissues fuse, their bloodstreams connect. He loses independence and becomes, in effect, a permanent sperm-producing attachment. Nature took the idea of never let go and interpreted it like a legal threat. Why would evolution create something so extreme? Because in the midnight zone, finding a mate may be harder than finding food. The habitat is vast, dark, and sparse. According to Yale researchers, sexual parasitism appears tied to the anglerfish transition into deep water, and multiple deep-sea anglerfish lineages even degenerated parts of their adaptive immune systems so the female's body would not reject the attached male. Read that again. The deep ocean did not just shape a strange courtship ritual. It pushed a vertebrate lineage toward rewriting one of the body's core biological defenses in order to make reproduction possible. That may be the real answer to the entire mystery. The deep ocean keeps creating monsters because it keeps presenting life with impossible trade-offs. If you can't reliably find prey, become a trap. If you can't safely be seen, become a phantom. If you may never meet a mate twice, turn one meeting into a lifetime merger. Monster after monster, the deep is not inventing chaos. It is inventing commitment to survival so absolute that it starts to look unnatural. So maybe the deep ocean does not create monsters at all. Maybe that's just our word for life stripped of comfort. Down there, sunlight is gone. Food is mostly falling debris. Distance turns reproduction into a miracle. The water is cold, black, and crushing, and still evolution keeps solving the problem. Not elegantly, not gently, but brilliantly. It builds lanterns out of flesh. It hides teeth in transparency. It stretches mouths into nets. It grows pillbugs into scavenging tanks. It turns romance into permanent fusion. And every one of those designs carries the same message. When the world becomes extreme enough, survival itself starts to look monstrous. And the most humbling part is this: we still barely know that world. Even now, with submersibles, telepresence, and high-definition cameras, some of its most famous giants remain rarely seen. And some of its strangest lives are known from fragments, accidents, and brief flashes on a screen. The deep is not finished surprising us. It may not even be close. Somewhere below, in a darkness older than our species, evolution is still running its experiment. And the next monster may already exist, waiting for us to finally notice that it was never a monster at all, just the logical shape of survival in a place that never promised mercy.